reconstruction of my ACL, PCL, medial and collateral ligaments, so not too many left in the knee there.
Hi and welcome back to another episode of Full Lean, and today we're starting a brand new segment called The Racing Line. Joining us from New Zealand, a good old friend of mine, very well-known racer, Sloan Frost. Sloan, how are you doing today, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Could be better, but it's been a tough week.
Yeah, I hear you're a little bit one-legged today.
Yep. I just left hospital actually. Just had a reconstruction of my ACL, PCL, medial and collateral ligaments, so not too many left in the knee there.
That sounds a bit serious, is it?
Yeah, it has been. It's been a little while coming. I had an accident about this time last year actually, and then so just been waiting on that surgery for quite a long time. It's quite a big process, and then just the recovery for something like this is just I haven't even processed it in my mind yet how I'm actually going to cope with it, because like 6 months, so 3 months of non-weight bearing, 6 weeks of non-weight bearing, and then 3 months of sort of not walking, and then 6 months or so of no working. So it's going to be a long road.
A bit of TLC there at home. I'm sure you deserve it of rest. You've been chomping at it for many years, whether it was fighting it out on track or fighting it out politically on the side of a track to hold on to a title, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's come quite a full circle in a lot of respects. I actually just been accepted onto the board of Motorcycling New Zealand. So and to be part of also the Road Race Commission. So it'll be interesting and to see if I can help and see what goes on behind the scenes and stuff. And I think it's my penance for all the drama that I've probably caused them in the past.
I do think, Sloan, that having a racer inside there is definitely going to give the guys a little bit more insight of how the guys think. Circling around, how did you start in racing? What is your journey? Where did it all begin for you?
Yeah, it was weird. Like, none of my family sort of raced or anything. We were always sort of involved around motorsports and really sort of bogan, typical sort of New Zealand culture of people. And I'd be walking down the road, and I mean, this is stories from my mother and father and that. And if there was a scooter park there, I'd just stand there looking at the scooter or the motorcycle and just go, "Oh, look, bike," And I was just, it all came. It came from my mother actually. She was supposed to pay the power bill, and she saw this. She was going with her brother to pick up a quad bike for the farm, and then they saw a little QR50 there, and so instead of paying the power bill, she picked up this little QR50 for me. And I mean, that probably tells us a whole story about my life and how I am with finances. And that motorcycles always come before the bills so much. But and then look, I've just been addicted to them ever since. It's a real sickness of mine, I think. It's just, you probably see how my mentality is, and I'm very passionate in whatever direction that I decide to go in. It can be a curse sometimes, but we can roll with it.
Was there a specific moment in time where you realized you're really into the racing thing and you're going to make a serious effort at this? You're going to have a good go at it?
Yeah, I really tried hard with the motocross, and I was quite successful at motocross, and at junior motocross and that I was always sort of top 3 to 5 nationally, and then even in senior motocross and that I went and did some senior racing and won some state titles and stuff in Australia, and was doing quite well at that. But it came a time where I had to choose between work and the racing, and then I got a few injuries and stuff like that, and my hand was sort of forced. I broke my arm, and then it was my boss gave me the ultimatum. He's like, you've got to do your apprenticeship or carry on with your racing. It wasn't really until I came back to the sport, which was a little bit too late, really, in the grand scheme of things. I was about 26 odd when I started doing road racing, but the motocross skills and that really, they transferred over. And I remember just going to the first track day, and I asked them, I just went into slow group, and I just went out in the track, and they said, okay, you just got to follow lead right around, and then after that you can go as fast as you want. And I was like, okay. Then, and I was riding around, and we did the first lap, and then I was like, okay, no one's really going any faster. Then I pulled in, and I said, are you sure can I go as fast as I want? And they said, yeah, you can go as fast as you want. And then I went out and did another couple of laps, and then they like black flagged me, and I'm like, dude, I thought you just said I could go as fast as I can. And they said, yeah, but like, not in the slow group. So they put me straight in the fast group, and then at that event, there was some people that recognized me from motocross racing, and they were like, oh, look, you need to go racing. And it was this guy called Willie and James. They had like a business that they were trying to set up called Speed Factor, and they were like, well, look, we've got a bike for you to race. And then,
wow.
So literally from my first track day, I had really good support, and they just helped me through it. And so I spent I did a couple of rides on a 600. Just went straight into the national racing, and I mean, at that time I'd choose tires on how they looked. I found some tires and I liked the look of them, and I chose those ones and sort of made some hairy decisions. But yeah, and then it basically just got straight on a superbike. So I didn't get to experience the whole, like everyone does now, with that tight racing in the 300 classes and moving up. I just went straight into that superbike class, which is and that's where I wanted to be. I didn't want to be on the slow sort of commuter bikes, and I mean, and look, I only had a very small window because I was so old anyway, so wanted to go straight to the top there, and yeah, that's where it sort of steamrolled right from there.
From memory, I do think you possibly locked horns with Andrew Stroud, or did you ever race with him?
My first experience of road racing was like back in 1993, and my uncle took me to Bay Park Speedway, or Bay Park, when the motorbike track was there, and and we had Andrew Stroud racing the Britain, and he signed this poster for me, and I had that on my wall all the time growing up. And then when I went to buy my first road race helmet, I went to buy it was like in the Trading Post or whatever our local thing was, and then I went to go and pick it up, and it was Andrew Stroud selling this helmet, and I was like, oh my god, dude, you got to sign it for me and stuff. And he was like, oh look, what are you up to? I'll take you. Do you want to come for a drive with me? And this is like an absolute hero. So we jumped in his car and we're driving down the road, and I was like, just like must have been bleeding his ears of questions, and I was like, what's it like when you crash? And he's like, well, look, there's some leathers in the back here. You have to go and chuck those leathers on and just jump out the sunroof. And I was like, okay, and he was real cool, man. He took me to Rakeley's workshop, and we picked up his superbike, and then we took that to a little go-kart track at Mount Wellington, and he ripped the superbike around with me and spent the whole day. Then he signed another Britain book for my dad, and so Andrew was really helpful right from the start with me. And then as it happened, we ended up with Suzuki helping me a lot, and so I ended up with Andrew's old bikes essentially. So when the new Suzuki models came out, I'd get his old Suzuki models. We were still sort of really privateer against what we would call factory riders in New Zealand. And then it was weird because we had an accident at Manfield, and we're both coming into the last corner, and we're fighting it was the last lap, and a lapper was just in front of us, and the lapper closed the line on us. And it ran me off track, and then I had to release the brake, and then Andrew came across in front of me, and I like took him out, like really bad accident right into the last corner, and he broke his collarbone and stuff. And then I did what you're not supposed to do, but I stopped on the track and ran over to help him and stuff. And it was an unusual picture because it's got my BMW sitting there, and then I'm down there with Andrew, and I'm like, and from that moment on, Andrew was like, why don't you take my ride and have this bike? So he contacted Suzuki for me, and basically got them to give me their latest generation, which was his superbike. And then I won the championship. Maybe 2 years after that. But yeah, so it all sort of stemmed and sort of revolved a lot around Andrew. And it was funny because in my first championship that I won, Andrew actually got second. So I was maybe, apart from Tony Rees, maybe one of the only riders to beat Andrew in a championship in New Zealand. So really proud, and that was sort of significant for me, because I hold people like that so special.
Absolutely, and I'm just reflecting here quickly. I know Andrew's his kids are racing, and your son Nixon's racing. Oh, have they raced together yet?
Yeah, it's crazy to see the names, because Jesse. So obviously there was Jacob, which came up. He was a bit older than Jesse, and he did really well, and he won quite a few titles in that. And then and Jesse, Jesse's an amazing rider, and he's probably, what, 4 years or something older than Nixon. So he's just that extra step again. But Nixon has been able to challenge him, and he's been able to beat him, and it's funny hearing the commentary. It's like. Stroud and Frost, and then and we've got Dennis Charlotte as well. So I was a teammate with Dennis Charlotte for quite a long time on Suzuki, and Hunter and Nixon are like they grew up together. They're pretty much exactly the same age, and from growing up together to being sort of like they're each other's nemesis. It's really, really good.
Well, you're sitting on the grid, all the bikes are revving up. You've qualified, you may be second pole, sitting on number one, be ready for the race, and the lights are starting to come down. What goes through your mind?
I read this start procedure from a guy called Jeff Stanton, who was I think 5 times AMA motocross champion, and it was all about the starts and that mental focus, and you just forget everything around you. His whole thing was, you just focus on that first corner and actually want to be there first. And so I just focus on those lights, and it's amazing if you just focus on those lights and you actually believe and you really want that start, how much that takes over. And I went through heaps of stuff with sort of psychologists and sports psychologists and stuff like that, and there's a whole science to it, but there's like a fear of losing, and there's a fear of putting yourself out there, and I'm not sure if everyone's honest with themselves about wanting to get that start. I think they, and that's the difference, and they're really wanting to be at that first corner first, and it makes a big difference. And sometimes I do want it, and then sometimes if I'm honest with myself, maybe sometimes I haven't. When I'm racing with guys that I consider, better athletes and that in Australia, and that it's really hard to have that mindset. What I love so much about the motorcycle racing and that too is just that absolute clarity that you get, so that everyone talks about.
There's some iconic tracks here, like the iconic Phillip Island, and if you're coming around Phillip Island at high speed, it's scary. How do you manage on the inside of a rider, inside of a helmet, flat out, the bike is on a red line, there's corners coming up, you might be chasing someone down, or someone's right on top of you. How do you manage fear in that moment?
Yeah, I went through some times with talking about that fear and stuff like that, and then I had some brake failures and things like that, and little things like that just they stick into your mind, so every time that I'd go to grab the brake, I would be a little bit hesitant that the brake wasn't going to be there and stuff like that. And I think, those are like hundredths of a second that your mind doesn't need to occupy. And I think that hurt me overall. Yeah, I didn't find myself being scared, and certainly not scared of the speed or anything like that. And even it's more so fear of the failure of a machine aspect. Pretty much all my scary crashes have been something to do with the bike, like the brakes have failed, or the bike's blown up and it tossed you or something like that. And those are the ones that scare you because you're not in control of that. So, but the difference in grabbing the brake, like I'm like, oh, is it going to work? And I might brake a fraction of a second earlier. That's not going to make any difference in the grand scheme of things. You're still in trouble. So if they don't work, so you might as well just go deep.
Talking about that, have you ever got stuck in a fixation and followed someone over the track?
No. It was really early in my time. I was at a track day, and a guy fell off in front of me, and he stood the bike up. He crashed, and I stood the bike up and ended up on the wrong side of his bike. And I was like, okay, we don't do that. We look where we want to go. So, I learnt that real early on, and it's amazing how you can sort of your brain works, and then you just know to look away from the danger and stuff. And I mean, it helps in every aspect of your life, even on everything. I can just in everyday life, if bad things are happening, I'm able to just sort of stay pretty calm in that. Which obviously comes with all those years of racing, I guess.
Yeah, it's just having that vision, looking through a corner, as we get taught when we start to get on a racetrack, and that.
Yeah, it's so important. And all these things, like I've become. I wasn't so technical back in the day, but with the guidance that I'm giving Nixon, I see myself. I'm such a technical rider now, and even when I get back on his bike and I ride set up bikes for other people, and that I'll be just super slow, and I'll be riding around the back of the pack, and then once the bike's good to go, then I'm fast, and then But I engineer myself to a standstill essentially. Nixon can get on a bike of just any rubbish that I build up, and he's fast, but he just doesn't have that experience, and I think that experience ends up slowing you down some.
When you have a bad overtake and someone just comes back at you straight away, or if you're coming into his corner and you've got this moment of hesitation and someone goes past you and you're going, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. How do you recover and make it up? What is your mental thought in that moment? What goes through your mind, and how do you deal with that and not fall back further and further?
Yeah, it's a weird one, because like I used to get angry about it, and you try and fire yourself up and be angry, but it doesn't work, and then you go, oh, I'm so mad, I'm just going to pass him back with pure aggression and stuff like that, but then that doesn't work, and so you just got to take it in your stride, and then you just follow the person, and then you can learn where they're going faster and stuff, and then you just need to reassess. But I'm big on you really just have to commit, like I've made the pass a lap before I've made the pass, like I'll plan my whole, and I'll just execute that pass, and you have to decide well before you're going to do it, and then and when you do it, because you have decided that, then it just happens, but it's quite a difficult skill to just go, oh yeah, that's where I'm going to pass them next time, and it's just all or nothing, and it most of the time works.
Do you have a zone? Do you zone out and go, okay, I'm just zoned out, I'm just going to do what I need to do? Or are you one of those real tactical riders where you're consistently trying to focus on it?
Yeah, no, very, very much tactical. I'm constantly planning my race, seeing where the other riders are. I'm never really just an all-out sort of rider. I mean, I'm good in qualifying and that when it's when I just have to throw a lap time down. But again, that still comes down to the very tactical aspect of it. I'm aiming at one particular point, and I'm trying to push that marker, and then I'm trying to do everything a little bit better on that lap, and then so in the race, very, very tactical. I mean, I did a race just recently. I jumped on one of Nixon's bike. It was and I had to learn all these different riders, and not like I was riding against all these 600 riders who I've never ridden against, and I had to follow them and learn how they rode and where their weaknesses were, So each rider would take me a couple of laps to figure them out before I could make a pass, and then and finally, I was riding with Stroud as well, so I had to work him out, and all these riders have really vastly different strengths and weaknesses. It's especially in that 600 class. It was actually fun. I mean, you get in the Superbike class, everybody's probably more respectful, I guess, and the racing's maybe not as tight and stuff like that, and then the passing's all sort of generic, but whereas the 600 stuff, everything's got to be really fluid. You got to be ready to be really tactical. So really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely thrilling, and obviously, like you say, the younger guys aren't as tactical yet, but you've got to have your wits around you. You have obviously grown up, you're a bit of an older dog in a fight now, so you are more experienced and seeing the bikes develop. Now in MotoGP, we've got all these electronics coming in, but through your racing career, how much has electronics come into racing and how much tuning goes into it, traction control, wheelie control, all these things.
Yeah, that's I think I was right on the cusp of all that stuff, you know, like when I first got on the Superbike, everything about me was unpolished, and so was the bikes, you know. They were really raw, and they were fast, you know. Like we were riding Formula One spec bikes, you know, so they were like Suzuki would go to town on the engines. You know, the engines in them were like, they'd throw $80,000 at them, and so they were just really angry, no quick shifters. So I remember the first thing that sort of changed were quick shifters, you know, and then it was something that didn't realize how much shifting the bike, changing gears, how it really upset the bike, you know. It would just start pumping out of the corners and stuff, and the quick shifters sorted that out, you know. It made the bike so much faster out of the corners. I was like, okay, this is cool. And then we moved into traction control, and obviously we were the first sort of riders to jump on the traction control wagon, because we had the BMW, and that was really just the most technically advanced bike there was, you know. So the BMW, we were able to challenge all these you know, factory guys, or they certainly had more power, but because the BMW was just so far advanced with the electronics and stuff. I just remember taking my first Superbike race win in the wet. I could just grab the throttle just wide open. I was like, I wouldn't do that now, but I just had this blind trust in this traction control wizardry that I could just open the throttle. And then even as recently as you know, a couple of years ago, I managed to jump on like the factory BMW in Australia, and that's something that I should mention too, because they've given me so much over the years, which was Nixon and Shane Kinderis and the BMW team over there. But I mean, at the time I was just like super fat and super unfit, and I jumped on the Superbike, but it was insane. So I remember just getting on this thing, and it was just a weapon, because it'd been set up for like Josh Waters. And I was just like, oh, it was too much for me. And then Shane's like, okay, well, where do you want me to sort this bike out, you know? And he's like, I said, well, I want some more engine braking. And he's like, well, where? I was like, well, you know, on the way into the corner. And he's like, no, which corner? So he changed it, you know. So I've got different engine braking into the corner, and then like mid-corner, while I was getting used to the bike, we were able to split the throttle body, so it was like drop down to 2 cylinders, and then the lean angle, you could set the lean angle that you wanted the 4 cylinders to cut back in, and then so then we could set the traction control, how much traction control we wanted off turn 1, off turn 2, how much wheelie control we wanted off turn 4, and man, you really need a data engineer, and someone like Shane's fantastic, because he can just you just say this information to him and he can change it, you know. But when you've got to change all that yourself and you've got to learn how to do that, you need a data engineer. And a lot of it, and there's so much of it, is engine braking and the strategy on the way into the corner, and that's I couldn't get a real good feel on that, and certainly on that BMW, on the latest generation BMW, I just had no confidence in the way into the corner, which was something that I'd never dealt with in my life, you know. But and it all just comes down to those electronic strategies. So yeah, it's a minefield now, and which is fun, because it gives you the engineering standpoint, so it drags a lot of other interest into it, you know. It's not just the rider having all the fun now, it's the engineers and the data engineers and suspension tuners and stuff. And Superbike racing now is a very big project, you know. Gone are the days where you can just sort of rock up with your wife like we did, you know, and we're changing the tires and stuff like that and chucking some gas in it, and you know, the level's got really high now, and yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see.
As a rider, then, are you actually riding, or are you managing systems?
No, it's funny, because you read on Facebook and stuff, and especially when the traction control first came out, they're like, it's just easy, you just got traction control. But nah, for me, it's no different. The rider's still the complete component of it, you know what I mean? And you are using these tools, you know. But if you dial in heaps of traction control or heaps of electronic intervention, you're slow, you know. So it's up to the rider to they need to go as fast as they can with the least intrusion as possible, because that everything is just going to slow you down. So really it comes down to the rider, and you can put different riders on the same bike with the same strategies of electronics, but one rider's going to get more out of it because of his ability to use the throttle properly, or use his body position, or there's so many more dynamics that come into it now, and the electronics, they're just tools.
They are tools. They are absolutely tools, and it's still about the rider in the end of the day. Thinking about it, your racing career, Nixon and everything, what is your proudest moment ever in racing?
Certainly winning that first championship, that was like a life achievement for me, really. I'd missed out on so many sort of championships going through motocross and that, and I was often the bridesmaid, as my dad would call me. So winning that first championship, it felt like that sort of life achievement thing. And I've said it before, maybe I should have set further goals for myself after that, because it's might be fun. And one of my sponsors, he's like, oh, if you win 1, 2, 3, what are you going to do? Do you just want to keep doing the same thing? And I'm like, oh yeah. And I hadn't really set too many further goals, so, but the overall goal, the thing that I like the most about it is, at any given time we're at the track, and we've most of the time got 3 generations there, and it's as a sport, and it's something that ties our whole family in, and my wife's family, and my father-in-law, he would travel around. He traveled around the whole of Australia with me for years, and I probably spent more time with my wife's father than she had all sort of growing up, so and then he would come and help, and then my dad's been with me ever since, right from, he doesn't really miss a race ever, and now I've got my son Nixon in there, and even my sister's son Phillip. So he's just started mini GP, and he got third in their little series that they've just started now, and there's not many families that can be so close and enjoy all this, and it's the one common interest that just binds the whole family together, So I think at the end of the day, with all the money that we've wasted on it, what's the most important thing in life, really, and it's family, and that's what brings it all together for us. So yeah.
Then it's not wasted money, is it? It's investment in that quality time with family. For your racing career, we have highlights, but then we also have those really, really difficult times. What is something that really challenged you, like a real difficult situation, and what did you learn out of that?
Yeah, obviously the situation with, when it came down to that championship with Tony Rees and I, and then we had a lot of drama with the protests, and that sort of ruined the sport for me a little bit, we got pitted against each other when it wasn't like Tony versus me, really, and it wasn't me versus Tony. It was more to do with how MEG, Motorcycle New Zealand, had administered the rules and stuff like that, and you were on Team Rees or you're on Team Frost and stuff like that, and it sort of got ugly, and I didn't help the situation too, in hindsight, I could have done things differently and stuff, and but yeah, that sort of took a big shine off the sport for me a lot, and so that could have gone differently, and then at the end of the day, I don't think it even really got sorted out properly, and it really just came down to a point where it was like, well, I think by the rules I should have got points for crashing in a race, because that's how the rules used to be written. It used to be if you crash and there's a red flag, you'd get points you'd go back a lap essentially, but but I was like, well, you don't deserve those points, so morally I was like, well, I can't win that argument morally, even if if there was if you were going to give me the championship I'll be like, wow. So that's the sort of point that it came down to at the end of the day. And, and I was happy to give that up at that point. But yeah, I mean, and it's been nice just recently, just catching up with Tony and Mitch and following Mitch's progression through the sport. And I mean, I was happy to, I think I was probably the last person to really beat him properly, in a championship, because he was just sort of getting going at that point. And I remember saying to him at the time, I was like, well, we can count out that, our days are numbered, because he was so fast right from the start, and he was a really good motocross rider, So so that was hard for me.
Yeah, I remember the controversy at the time, and it was difficult not to pick sides. Unfortunately, like you say, the rules wasn't very clear, and it ended up, I believe they even took your title away, because you were awarded the title when they took it away from you.
Yeah, yep. So that was tough, and came down to half a point, and basically I just in the last race, it was like I just had like do or die, like I had to win, and Tony had to get fifth or better, and in the last race it just ended up getting red flagged a bunch of times, and then people thought that I'd crashed in the last race, and then because the commentators had said, Sloan has crashed, but I hadn't. I was in front, and so there was some sort of misinformation and stuff around that, and then and Tony was like sixth, but he'd put like a hard compound tire on, expecting the race to go to 20 laps, so he was expecting to be slower at the start and let that progression build during the race, so it would have so the red flags hurt him, and then the way the rules are written, you could only have sort of 2 restarts, and but our rules have never been super straightforward, and there's a lot of room there for interpretation, and I mean, and that's essentially why I'm trying to get in there now and help, and look at it from a racer's perspective. And a lot of the time those rules are they're written with the best intention, but you need someone that thinks with a racer's mind. I'll look at a rule, whether it's right or wrong. I look at a rule and just go, well, how do I beat that rule, or how do we not necessarily beat the rule, but where can I find an advantage on it? So I think if you've got someone behind the scenes that is looking at things subjectively like that, it's going to help the sport.
What keeps you motivated to stay involved in the sport?
It just comes back to that sickness again that I think I said. I'm just absolutely addicted to the motorcycles, and it's hard. I think sometimes it's hard for people to accept that I'm actually trying to just help them, and I just do it because I enjoy helping people so much, and then I love seeing Nixon's progression, and I love seeing how it builds his confidence, and even his schooling and stuff like that really started to excel when he started to get better at the racing, because it gave him more confidence, and that's what keeps me excited. And I mean, I like going back and still the Superbike racing. That's sort of hard for me at the moment to really enjoy, because I can't just go and ride around and just enjoy it. I have to be throwing new tires at the bike and really pushing myself, and I'm still feel like I'm still at a decent level, like I feel like I could still go out and I think I could still win Superbike races and stuff, and but I'm past that, and I don't want to do that, and I see that money is anything that I waste on myself, I could be investing that at Nixon, and I get just as much enjoyment out of going through all this process again and sharing my knowledge with him, and making his bikes the best they can be, and looking for every opportunity. So that's why I quite enjoy the motocross. I still enjoy going to motocross. There's something about just sort of riding around in paddocks and stuff. Just, I guess it takes me back to when I was young and my dad was riding around on his dirty old DR200 and stuff, and we just enjoyed the racing. I just enjoyed motorcycling for what it was, So I just absolutely addicted still.
Someone that has raced at Phillip Island, what's your thoughts about MotoGP leaving Phillip Island this year and then from next year on towards Adelaide?
It's sad. It really is. Like, you go to Phillip Island, it's such a special place. It's the first place that we went to MotoGP, and it's what basically gave me another thing that gave me a love for road racing. And we went to MotoGP, I think it was 2003, and it was just Rossi Mania, and Troy Bayliss and that was there. It was the Aussie guy at the time in GP, and man, everything about that place is just special. And then I remember just going there for my first race meeting, and every time we go there, we just were there last weekend with Nixon, and it's just got such a special vibe to it. And then it was just beautiful weather, and it was such a send off. And because we got the news that it was moving to Adelaide while we were there for the Superbikes, and it's really sad. I mean, I can see it from like reading between the lines. I can see. I know that I think it was Lindsay Fox or something that owns the circuit, and he would sort of propose putting in this big hotel complex and really spending all the money on it. But I think the local council voted it down in Cowes or wherever it is, and I think it looks, just reading between the lines, it looks like he's just gone, oh, you know, I'm not gonna spend anything on it, and you sort of reap what you sow. And so I can understand why the GP have just felt like that they need to move. You know, the facilities there are not probably what is deserved of that track, and yeah, and the weather is difficult there sometimes, and how hard that place is on the tyre, especially when they go and resurface it. You know, the tyre temperatures there are enormous. But yeah, like it's gonna. I mean, like they're sort of going for that whole Formula One circus aspect of it, aren't they? With putting in a street circuit. And you look at the street circuits in the Formula One, it never provides the best racing. It's all a bit processional, and but it draws good crowds. And I mean, if we look at the big picture, we need that for racing, you know, and for our sponsors and stuff. And you can be like the purists in that, you know, we love the sport for what it is, but for us to get that all-important sponsorship money and fans to the track and people supporting the racing, we need to do things like this, you know, and then bringing it into Adelaide there, I guess, and a street circuit. Yeah, it's going to be good for a different demographic, I guess. And it sounds like we might be getting the Australian Superbikes there, and we're still pretty invested in the Australian Superbike stuff, and that, you know, I see that as such a strong building ground for the Kiwis, and it's real cool to see heaps of Kiwis going over there now. And like I feel sort of a little bit responsible because of helping so many Kiwis to get over there. But I've always said, you know, if you can't go to Australia and win, don't bother going to Europe, you know.
For young riders coming into the sport, what is your word of advice to them?
It was interesting. I just listened to a podcast of Liam Lawson's, and he was saying what he was sort of most disappointed about, and I'm probably bad at this as well. Is he's like, you know, you can just sort of still dare to dream. You know, he was like, he wanted to be in Formula One, and that was and then everyone said, oh, you know, it's too expensive. Or he talks to young racers and stuff like that, and they're like, what do you want to do? And they were like, well, yeah, we would like to do Formula One, but it's too expensive. And he's like, these 7-year-olds have already sort of quit their dreams, you know. And these things are still possible. And so I just think, I think that was a really, really good lesson, you know. Don't cut your dreams short. Set your goals long, you know, and really goals are so important. You know, you've got to have your short-term goals and then your long-term goals. And you know, if I suppose not reaching a goal, if you set it, is one of those fear of losing things as well, you know. But so you got to be serious about when you set them. But I mean, aim high.
And I look forward to seeing you trackside very soon. Sloan, thank you so much for your time. We do wish you a speedy recovery, and we look forward to seeing you around trackside again very soon, and obviously following Nixon. And we will definitely schedule a time to catch up with you and Nixon in the near future.
Cool, dude. Oh, thanks for listening to me ramble on.
Thank you so much. Hey guys, if you do like what we're doing here on Full Lean, please, we're a small little channel. Do support us, become a subscriber, give us a like, and please comment down below, and we'll do our best to get back to you guys. Until next time, keep the rubber side down.